I'm Jeff Cornwall, and this is the Entrepreneurial Mind. Today our guest is Mark Rubenstein with A Head for Profits. We'll be back to talk with him after this. Welcome, Mark.
Nice to be here.
So, in prepping for our conversation, I went to your website and I became mesmerized because I saw beer taps and kegs and beer lines and got lost in all the beautiful things in life. I do like draft beer, and that's really kind of what you guys are all about is the whole draft beer experience, right?
It's absolutely what it's about. We came about this idea to try and make sure that the beer tastes the way the brewers intend. And we manage the life cycle of the beer product from the brewer through the wholesaler to the retailer and back to the customer.
So how did you identify this pain in the market, this problem, this thing that wasn't working right?
Well, we actually are well networked in the industry anyway, and some wholesaler friends came to us because they were having a problem. And they asked us to put the business model together.
And the problem was we have really good beer.
The problem is they have great beer.
And these idiots all the way down the supply chain degrade the experience.
They could not manage it through the life cycle of the beer.
Right.
So again, the brewer makes an excellent product. Our offices are right across the street from Yazoo. So we know Linus makes a great beer. It goes to the wholesaler. From the wholesaler, it gets to the restaurant owner. And then you rely on that process, the equipment, the training, and the bartender themselves to make sure that the beer is served the way it's supposed to be.
So you are primarily a consulting organization then?
No, we physically manage the process. So we clean lines.
Oh, okay.
We maintain systems. We install systems. We consult at the restaurant level. We do food and beer pairings to drive incremental revenue. We manage everything to drive more income to the retailer, which will ultimately buy more product from the wholesaler and the brewer. But we also make sure that the beer is managed through its life cycle the way it's intended to be, so by the time you get it as a consumer, it's perfect.
Interesting. And so all the way to training the bartenders, I assume? Because that's where things can...
You could do 99% of it well.
Yeah.
And if that individual isn't trained well, or the glass is dirty or warm or the pressure's wrong,
right.
the beer's affected.
Or they don't know the fact that it does need a head on the top of it.
That's correct.
To release the flavor and all that kind of stuff.
That's correct.
Even the dirty glass thing is something that I've learned over time how to spot it in terms of how the bubbles go up, and there's a lot of subtleties to something that most people have always thought in America is kind of almost a commodity kind of a beverage.
Sure.
And yet, I think the craft brewery craze has kind of opened up American palates to the fact that beer can actually be a pretty cool experience in lots of different ways.
They've certainly been instrumental in driving that activity, but the historic light lagers and so forth also are great beers.
Right.
They are absolutely great beers. But the ingenuity, the creativity behind the crafts now is driven the mindset. You see people, 20-year-old or 20-somethings.
21-year-old, yeah.
20-somethings buying $5 pints of beer.
Right.
You would never have seen that 5-7 years ago.
Right. So is it primarily the craft end of the supply chain that
Nope.
It's all the way from the mainstream brands all the way down to the micro brands?
Anheuser-Busch, Miller Coors, and all the crafts. We manage, the way our business model works is by courting the wholesalers initially.
Okay.
We network well with the brewers, and we already have the relationships with the retailers. So we court the wholesalers because the wholesalers in the southern states, primarily south of the Mason-Dixon line, are required to clean lines.
Right.
That's their job.
Right.
They don't want to have to do it. They've never done it well. Admittedly, they don't do it well. And so they now are outsourcing that to us. We have 17 wholesalers in 6 states. We clean 60,000 lines a cycle. And we are growing virtually double every year. Doubling in our size virtually every year.
Now, in traveling a little bit around the world, the beer experience is very different in other parts of the world. America has always kind of primarily been a bottle and can kind of a beer environment until recently. And the craft breweries have opened up the tap rooms and so forth. Is that part of what has driven, you think, the opportunity for you guys is sort of America's a discovery of what Europe has known for years, and that draft beer is probably a little bit better?
Well, certainly European beer has always been deemed to be better.
Right.
The Europeans, and I know this because I have a lot of friends in the business that are European, whether they're German or British or Scottish, are absolutely envious of the ingenuity that the Americans are putting forth now on the beer side.
Right.
The flavor profiles, the IPA, just a different culinary aspect to the beer production. I think what's done it is there was some loosening of the laws a little bit, and
Right.
I think it's just been a creative mindset that's sort of perpetuated it.
Yeah.
There's no competition amongst the crafts. Linus was very instrumental in helping Jackalope get started. I mean, he purposely did it because he felt that more crafts in the market would be beneficial to him.
Oh, look what it did in Asheville. Up in Asheville in the mountains, it's just amazing how that's exploded up there.
So,
Well, he really was the pioneer here who's opened this market up, and
absolutely.
we haven't looked back.
So he'll tell you, though, when he first started, he would go around just because he was almost afraid to taste his own beer and make sure it wasn't the way it's supposed to be. And he would, if it wasn't, he would go and clean that line. So we may, again, our pitch, our whole premise is to make sure that the beer tastes the way the brewer intends.
So now you said that you're in 6 states right now. Is this primarily regional play because of some of the laws in terms of cleaning lines and so forth, or is this something that you see some potential even broader expansion for your business?
We see broader expansion, but the obvious expansion's in the southern states now where the wholesalers are mandated.
Right.
Northern states, it's managed by the Board of Health, so that cost can be pushed back against the retailer. But the other part of what we do is we manage data. We know every tap in the entire state of Tennessee. We know when one tap changes from one brand to another. And AB and Miller Coors, they love that information. And so they drive activity for us in other markets. So we have to be able to expand somewhat in real time based on their interests.
So you have a database that tracks all the brands and where they are.
Every line cleaner that we have an app that we
Right.
developed, and they take a full inventory of every line.
That's incredible market intelligence. I mean, is that something
rotates.
you sell back to the industry, or?
We provide every wholesaler with their listing of beers and the exceptions, net or loss from one cycle to another, and the cycle is 2 weeks. If they want all the other information, yes, we sell that.
That's incredible. I mean, I've heard people over the years talk about how you could create that kind of database, but it's sitting there right there at your fingertips as you're cleaning these lines, and it's just an automatic thing to enter that in. That's fascinating. Well, this is obviously one of my favorite interviews because it's one of my favorite topics, and you've made me quite thirsty, so I think we'll wrap this one up so I can head home and probably have a Yazoo when I get home. So.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity.
Mark, nice to meet you. Congratulations on the next award
Thank you.
nomination.
Thank you.
And look forward to talking with you again soon.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you.